Hello everybody, it's Jen. I'm jumping right into my first card for my 3 cards 1 kit with the Pink and Main Crafty Courtyard subscription card kit. This is the first kit and it did sell out. This is the March kit, so I know a bunch of you will have been able to get your hands on this kit and are looking for some inspiration, so I hope you enjoy these 3 cards. I grabbed out some of my new Catherine Pooler mini inks. I wanted to create a very soft watercolor background. I'm using some Canson XL watercolor paper here, and I just wet the background with some clean water to begin with. And then I used the aqua color for the top. I wanted it to go from lightest to darkest. And then with the darker blue, which is called Suede Shoes, the lighter one is called All That Jazz. I'm going to start again under the darkest aqua with my lightest of the darker blue, and then I am going to have that gradually get darker again as it goes to the bottom of the card. Now I don't know what I had on my cardstock here, but I did get a little mark there on the left hand side. So I'm just trying to bring in some of this ink and darken it up so that you can't really tell. Once the card is complete, it's not something that really stands out, so I wasn't too worried about it. I'm just using some water here to blot out those harsher lines. Again, trying to see if I could get that spot picked up. I couldn't, so here's where I go in and make it much darker and try to blend it into the background. I'm just going to dry that really quickly with my heat tool and cut that panel out with a stitched rectangle die. I'm going to work on the sentiment now. So I love the big bold sentiments in the stamp set, and I was drawn right to the best wishes. I don't have any other stamp sets with this sentiment, so I wanted to make sure that I created a card using it so I could have it in my stash. Because there was a little bit of warping, I'm using my long magnet here at the top of the card. I'm going to ink this up with some Versamark. This is a sticky wet glue that is perfect for embossing. I do have a little bit of a spot in my stamp platform, so I wanted to make sure I really pressed down to get that image, but you'll see here I actually didn't get the whole sentiment stamped. So I was just trying to see if I missed it with the glitter embossing powder. And there wasn't enough ink there for it to stick to, so I am just going to take a paintbrush and I'm going to just sweep off the 2 first letters there, and that will allow me to come back and re-stamp that because I haven't moved it out of my stamp platform. So I'm just going to heat emboss this, and here's where I come in for a second time. I'm going to just press that really well. Hopefully this time I get it. I can actually see the Versamark on my paper this time, so I know that I'm not going to have a problem embossing at this point. So the glitter adheres perfectly, and then I will take my heat gun again and just emboss this after I clean up around it with my dry paintbrush. This glitter embossing powder is so stunning in person. It's super shiny and just gorgeous. There was a little spot missing from the T, so I'm just using my embossing pen by Fawn just to fix that up. Added some more of the glitter embossing powder and heat set that, and now I'm adding this to the card base, and I'm using the aqua or teal color cardstock that came in the kit. Bringing out my inks again here. That one was a little bit stubborn to get the lid off. This was my first time using these inks and I absolutely love them. I'm going to use the stars in the stamp set, the bigger one in the aqua or teal color, and then the littler one using the darker blue. I'm just stamping that in a diagonal pattern down the card. So that will complete my first card, and then we will now move on to my second card. So I was really inspired by those star stamps, and then there's also little circle stamps that come in the stamp set. And I was trying to figure out what I could do that might be a little bit different and maybe could be a unisex card, because sometimes I struggle with masculine cards. So I pulled out a bunch of my Distress Oxides here. I have Squeezed Lemonade, Picked Raspberry, Wilted Violet, Peacock Feathers, and Mowed Lawn. So I'm just making sure to get these colors spaced out all over the card. This is a panel of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm not worried about a really good blend here because I am going to be going over this with Distress Oxide in Black Soot. This will give me the Night Sky. So I just want to make sure I get full coverage over top of all of the colors here. And of course, I didn't use a piece of paper to protect my fingers. I had it all over me, but that's the fun in creating these backgrounds. So now I'm just going to take my Tim Holtz Distress Sprayer here. I'm going to add quite a bit of water. I let that sit for a while, and then I brought in a paper towel to bring up that color, the black, which will leave a lot of the color coming through the card. I'm going to use my Heat Embossing Buddy here. This just removes any of the static. I did let this panel sit for quite a while so it would dry. And now I'm going to use the Happy Birthday sentiment with my Versamark again. I'm going to use the silver embossing powder because I absolutely loved the glimmer and shine that came with, well, it didn't come with, that's what it is. But anyways, so I'm making sure I stamp this really well because I learned my lesson from the first time, but I think my card moved, or I'm not really sure, but I did not get a clean impression. But at this point, I was thinking I've gone this far in the card making process with the galaxy background that I didn't want to start over. So I decided to keep going, and I wanted to see what it would look like once I embossed it. And you can see there, it's okay. It's a little bit muddled there, especially the middle row of letters. But I decided to stamp out the circles and the stars around the sentiment. And while I was doing that, I was trying to figure out what I could do to save this card. I'm just going to add the glitter embossing powder to those little elements. I thought that this silver just made for a really great galaxy nighttime sky. So once I get that down, I'm going to come in with one more of the little stamps here. I'm going to add a few more to the right-hand side of the card. And then I think this is the final one that I do. And I'll just, again, add my embossing powder, heat that up really quickly. And I just love watching this glitter embossing powder melt. It's, like I said, it's just stunning in person. So I'm going to get those finished, and then there's one tiny little star stamp in the set. So I'm going to add that around my card. I'm not going to show you all of the heat embossing for that. I'm going to move on to adding some white splatter for my galaxy background. I'm using some white gouache paint, and all of the products will be listed below, as well as the links to Pink and Main, so that you can check out the new subscription kit. They are going to have more kits available for April, so if you missed out, stay tuned, and hopefully you will be able to get your hands on it. So you can see here, I'm just using a paintbrush with lots of water. I'm splattering that around. I wanted to protect my happy birthday sentiment, so I just used a piece of scrap cardstock to protect that. I'm going to adhere this down to my card base. I'm using the light gray cardstock that came in the kit this month. And here's where I figured I could probably save this card, or at least I was going to take the chance to see if this would work. So I used the Happy Birthday die, and I used the same light gray cardstock and die cut that out, and decided to put the die cut letters over top of the glitter embossed letters. And It takes a little bit for these to adhere down to that glitter embossing, but now that it's dried, it stays in place. I'm not worried about it moving at all, and I actually love the way this turned out, because now there's like a halo effect of the glitter embossing behind the letters. So it's super shiny when the light reflects on it, but yet with the die cut words you can actually read the sentiment. So then I decided to cut out some of the stars and circles out of the gray cardstock as well. So not only does the stamp set come with the stamps, the dies also cut out the same shapes. So that is my card for card number 2. So moving on to card number 3, I really wanted to color something, and there wasn't any images in the stamp set. So I decided to create my own. I'm taking the balloon die and I'm tracing it onto some alcohol-friendly cardstock. So you'll notice that I'm only tracing the circular part of the balloon. If I traced the little bottom piece, it would have looked really funny. It would have been too big. So I decided I would just draw my own in. But this is a great way to get extra use out of your dies, especially if you love to color images. So I'm just finishing off the bottom of my balloons here, and then I'm going to bring in my Memento Tuxedo black marker, and I'm just going to trace over my pencil lines. And you see here, I don't get these perfectly ballooned shape, which really bothers me, but I just have to keep telling myself that it's a handmade card and nobody is really going to notice. They're just going to be thankful to get the card. So I'm just going to finish this up here. The balloon to the top, that left hand side there, is kind of the worst, but I'm going to use my darkest colored colors for that one and hope that I can kind of fix that. So before I do any coloring, I want to make sure that I'm erasing all my pencil lines, because it will not come up once you lay down your alcohol markers. So today I'm using Copic markers, and I'm going to be coloring the first balloon in a pink color combination. So I'm using R39, R85, R83, and R81. So the darkest part of the balloon is going to be where it is behind the other balloons. I'm going to leave a little bit of a highlight here to the right hand side of my balloon. There's also going to be a darker shadow to the bottom where the balloon comes down and ties. So I'm going to go over this a second time. I wanted there to be a bit more of the darker color, and so that you could really see the various colors throughout the entire balloon. Once I get this balloon colored, I'm going to move on to coloring the blue balloon. So you can see here I'm using the B99, which is a pretty dark color, and I'm trying to fix that imperfection in the left side of that balloon. So I'm coming in after the B99 with the B97, trying to really blend that out. Once I have the B97, I'll bring in the B95, and my lightest shade will be the B93. So I want to make sure to leave a highlight on the right hand side of this balloon as well. Just went out of the line there. I'm just going to fix that up with my colorless blender. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the third balloon in purple. My darkest is the BV08, and then I'll use BV04, BV02, and BV01. For this balloon, if the light source was coming from the left, the little highlight would be on the right hand side like the other ones are. However, because the right hand side is behind the other balloons, then I can't really do that. So I decided to color the whole balloon in, and once I do that, I really don't like it, but you'll see how I'll fix that in the end. So I'm just going to add my sentiment. I wanted to use the Let's Party stamp, and Lila's just playing in the background behind me if you can hear that scratching noise. For those of you who are new to my channel, Lila is one of my 2 rescued cats. So I stamped that out, and here's where I decide, well, I didn't decide. I knew that I wanted to connect the balloons with strings to the sentiment. Now originally I wanted it to come right through the entire sentiment and come out the bottom, but once I drew my lines on in pencil, I decided I didn't like that. And of course, I go to erase that and realize I hadn't waited long enough for my Versafine ink to dry. But I'll be able to fix that with my white eraser, and then I'll bring my sand eraser in a little bit here and try to just fix that. So I take my marker again, and you saw me, I just drew the lines to the first part of the sentiment. Now I'm just going to cut this out with a stitched rectangle scalloped die. I just wanted to give a little bit of interest to this card. It's very clean and simple. I'm going to add some silver glitter cardstock behind this. I'm just going to cut this down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I am going to use some rectangle dies here to cut out a border. I don't need to waste all of the inside because I just want to see the littlest bit popping out from behind my card panel. Now if you don't have silver glitter paper, you can make it using the glitter embossing powder that came in the card kit. Once I get that adhered, I'm going to adhere my card panel down just using liquid adhesive. I could have popped this up, it would have looked really pretty as well, but I tend to like flat cards, they're easy to mail. As a final touch, I took the star and circle dies that I used on my second card for the galaxy. This time I cut them out of glitter cardstock. So this gives the card a little bit of shimmer and shine. Just trying to decide where I actually want that little circle. Once I get these in place, I'm just going to try to fix up this spot here. So I bring my pen back in. I don't know if I made it worse or better. And then for the highlights, I'm going to add some white gel pen, and I really wanted to have one on that purple balloon. I thought it looked funny being the only one without a highlight. So I decided just to add it to the left-hand side. And that is card number 3. So just before I show you all 3 cards, I just want to extend gratitude to Pink and Main for letting me work with their kit. I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed the cards that I created. If you want to let me know which one is your favorite, I'd love to hear in the comments below. Have a great day, everyone, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.